Israel and Palestine, the UN's failed two-state solution simplified. Origins. The two-state solution was a proposed framework to resolve conflicts between the Jews and the Arabs over immigration and control over the land, as the British promised both parties the same land, then ended up taking control of the land for themselves as they seized it from the Ottomans following the partition of the Ottoman Empire after their defeat in the First World War. Due to anti-imperialist pressure from the United States, as well as the region not being worth the cost and headache to the British, they planned to withdraw from the region in 1947. In order to prevent further escalation in this conflict, the United Nations came up with a two-state partition plan to split the British Mandate of Palestine into two states, Israel for the Jewish people and Palestine for the Palestinians. The Jews accepted this partition, but the Palestinian and other Arab states refused it as they saw it as continued colonization. This refusal caused the British not to enforce the two-state solution before they withdrew from the region, making war inevitable. War. In 1948, with the British Mandate for Palestine over and with the Israelis declaring independence for a new state, the Palestinians and the Arab League of Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Transjordan, Lebanon, Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, and Yemen declared war in an effort to establish a united Arab Palestine. Following the outbreak of war, the United States put an arms embargo on any nation involved in the fighting. The Arabs thought that the war would be an easy one given the vast difference in size, but due to several factors such as infighting between the Arab states, poor military doctrine, and subpar equipment, the Israelis were better prepared for the conflict and they bought more equipment before the embargo took effect, making it easier to deal with it. The Israelis shocked the Arab world and won the war, solidifying their existence as a nation and seizing additional territory that had previously been allotted to Palestine under the two-state solution. The remaining territories that were given to Palestine under the solution were the Gaza Strip, which was now controlled by Egypt, and the West Bank territories, which was controlled by Transjordan. Palestinians then began to flee vast swaths of their former territory as entire villages were destroyed in the fighting, fears of retaliation and massacre by the advancing Israeli military, biological warfare, and the poisoning of water wells, as well as direct expulsion orders from the Israeli government. In turn, many Jews fled or were expelled from their surrounding Arab nations and migrated to Israel. Aftermath of the Six Days War. After a series of border skirmishes and a blockade which prevented Israeli use of the Suez Canal and access to the Red Sea, which is international waters, tensions rose and resulted in a military mobilization and a preemptive strike by the Israelis on June 5, 1967, and a declaration of war. A mere 6 days later, on June 10th, the war was over with a decisive and dominant Israeli victory against Egypt, Syria, Iraq, Jordan, and Lebanon. Israel made massive territorial gains amounting to controlling the Gaza Strip, the Sinai Peninsula, the Golan Heights, and the West Bank. The significance of this, however, is that it's the first time that Israel was now responsible for governing the Palestinian people, a people who they had war intentions with for decades. Tensions also continued to rise between the two as Israeli settlers moved into Israeli occupied territory, which is illegal under international law, which has also led to an increased military presence, leading to further conflicts resulting in uprisings or intifadas. Conversely, however, after the war, tensions and conflict between Israel and the other Arab nations start to simmer down, with Egypt being the first nation in the Arab world to recognize Israel in 1980 and receive the Sinai Peninsula back in 1982 because of it. As a result, a new relative peace begins to form, and the conflict changed from an Israeli Arab one to an Israeli Palestinian one. Palestinian militia groups then accepted the fact that they nor the other Arab nations would be able to defeat Israel in open conflict and resorted to terror attacks. The goal of these militia groups was to establish a unified Arab Palestine rather than accepting the two-state solution. With the American brokered Oslo Accords in 1993, the Palestinian Authority was created, allowing Palestinians some autonomy in governing themselves, and was seen as an important stepping stone in Israel pulling out of occupied Palestinian territory. But when the Israeli Prime Minister gets assassinated by a radical Israeli, no further peace deals can be agreed upon, as the radical parts of both sides want the other's complete destruction. After the Second Intifada, Israeli politics shifted much further right as they believe peace attempts with the Palestinians are futile, and they build additional walls and checkpoints limiting Palestinian freedoms and trying to maintain the status quo rather than finding a solution. So why did the two-state solution fail? The 1947 two state solution failed for a multitude of reasons, but primarily because the Palestinians and Greater Arab world initially rejected it, the British refusal to enforce the solution itself and the territorial boundaries were inherently flawed, and persistent hostilities between the two groups of people involved, and the expansionist goals of both sides. In reality, a single multi ethnic state would have been the best way to include both factions, but due to reasons previously stated, this was extremely unlikely from the start. Thank you.